I am feeling that music. What's up, everybody? It's G Smalls, and I'm here with my second installment of the limited series, Black Enough, Man Enough, where each week I am discussing different themes throughout the book. Last week I sat down with my mom, Dr. David Malbranch, and his mom, and we discussed what it was like to, grow up with a white mother as a mixed race Black man. And we also spoke with our mothers about what it was like as a white woman to raise Black sons. And this week, I'm very excited about this conversation. It's something that's very passionate to me, passionate for me, and that is bridging the gap between, or at least doing what I can to bridge the gap between the Black men, Black heterosexual men, and Black non-heterosexual men. And so tonight, I'm going to be talking about just different questions, different topics that I want to bring up that I think that could induce some healthy dialogue. But first, I'm going to take a moment to read from my new book, Black Enough, Man Enough. If you have not picked it up yet, what are you waiting on? You can pick it up on Amazon, Kindle, and Apple Books. So tonight, I'm reading from the chapter called Breaking Tradition. And this is on page 228. When I took the days off from work, I didn't even tell my boss, mostly because he was a straight Black man. Frank didn't even know I was gay. Nobody in my department did. Only the people in the call center where Raphael used to work knew, and none of them spoke with the people in my department. Frank even called me during the weekend to ask me a work question the night of our wedding, and I answered and dealt with the issue as if I was not celebrating this huge milestone in my life. The following week, during a one-on-one meeting, he asked, "So how was your trip? What made you go to New York?" I froze for what seemed like an eternity. I can feel my cheeks beginning to get rosy, something I always hated because I felt that was only something that happened to white people. What do I say? Do I tell the truth? Do I say for a wedding? Yes, a wedding. I went for a wedding. Oh, cool. Whose wedding? I blurted out, mine. Mine? What the hell? I didn't mean to say that, but it was too late now. What? Congrats, man. What are you doing back already? And why didn't you tell me? I would have never bothered you and your new wife. I am sorry. Oh, God. I guess I have to come out again, as I have had to do many times since I thought I came out years ago. I guess this is a constant thing you have to do when meeting people who assume you are straight. Well, she is a he. Oh, I can see the shock on his face. Frank was about 6 foot, 245 pounds, with smooth dark skin and a bald head. He was extremely macho. If the Incredible Hulk was Black, he looked exactly like Frank. Surprised? I didn't know what to say. I just had to break the silence. His face loosened. Well, yeah, I knew you didn't have such a strong bravado, but I didn't figure it as just that. But at any rate, congratulations. I chuckled. Frank was calling me soft. I wasn't offended, and I didn't take it as an insult. I agreed, actually, and I had come to love who I was and how I had showed up in the world. I was also relieved at his reaction. Frank is the type person I look to the most for validation, masculine, straight Black men. To receive it from him felt good, and it made me more open to expect positive reactions from other masculine, straight Black men. He made me feel enough in that moment, even though I had just married a man. I still didn't start announcing that I was married, though. It just became something I shared when it came up in conversation. I didn't want anyone to make a big deal about it. So I think that kind of sets the tone for the conversation tonight. So with that, I want to bring in my guest. Dr. Cleo Manago, my cousin and friend, Earl Kornickey, Quentin Latham, aka Funky Dineva, and we have Mr. Herb M Van Dorn. We are also, there you go. I didn't see you backstage. We also have Mr. Frank Ski.
What's happening?
So, welcome everybody. I am extremely honored that all of you have joined this conversation with me tonight, and I look forward to what I think could be an extremely productive dialogue. So tonight, I can't say I really have a specific agenda. I think this is just kind of me doing my part in what I think is a huge issue, which is the disconnect between the Black heterosexual men in the community and the non-heterosexual men in the community. And I don't think that we, there's some bridges that we need to gap here. So with that, I'm just going to be bringing up different topics and questions. I know I emailed you guys some questions. Within the past 30 minutes, I came up with a whole lot more of them. So I hope you guys are okay with me asking some spontaneous questions. But to start off, I want to talk to my cousin Nikki. Earl Kornickey. Yes.
For clarity, can we just get a show of hands? Who's non-hetero?
Yes. So we can, and I'm going to actually introduce everybody as soon as I pull them up. But
okay. I just want to know what I'm dealing with here. How many? If it's 4 against 1, 3 against 1.
It ain't nobody against nobody.
I just want to know what I'm dealing with.
So it's actually 3 and 3. How about that?
Okay, good.
Yeah, 3 and 3. And so first, I want to start off with my cousin Nikki, Earl Kornickey, who is a crime investigator. And I brought Nikki in. He makes a small appearance in the book. I didn't talk about the brotherhood I had growing up that much in the book, but I was very fortunate to have a very strong brotherhood with some very strong Black heterosexual Black men. So I wanted to bring my cousin in here to talk about that. And with that, I wanted to ask you, Nikki, and just listening to the reading and also your experience of me and me coming out to you, whatever the case may be. I wanted to know what your experience was like when that came to your attention.
Well, I mean, I remember it's one of those poignant moments where, that you remember, your whole life. I remember exactly where I was and exactly what I was doing when you came out to me. I won't get into any depth in the story unless you want me to, but I was a little surprised because I know you my whole life, and you and I have been on many double dates together with women. Yeah. People said growing up you had like some feminine qualities. I saw it, but then I didn't see it. I saw you date. We lived like 6 doors down from each other. Mm-hmm. So, but at the same time, I was a little surprised, but it didn't make me feel any different from you, any differently than I felt about you previously. I always loved you. I support you. It was immaterial in my eyes, and that's how I always felt. But I do remember coming out when you came out to me, and me calling the rest of my friends and kind of us having 3-way calls about each person.
Right.
It was what it was.
So let me ask you this question. Have you ever been homophobic or biphobic?
So I take umbrage with the whole term of homophobic. Phobia. I don't have a fear of gay people, and I never have. But in the way that you're using the word, no, I've never been homophobic. Growing up on Jamestown, where we're from, it's a very macho, very bravado area, and you can't grow up in an area like that where it doesn't have somewhat of impact on you. I'm sure at some point in my life, growing up, and when I was less mature, I saw gay people that may have had visceral reactions in terms of maybe my face, and that came along with the type of ignorant environment we grew up in. But as we got older and we got to understand people, but even before I knew you were gay, I never had any type of fear or any type of hatred or dislike for gay people.
So I'm gonna ask you guys if you could just mute your phone, and I mean your connection if you're not speaking, just so we could eliminate the feedback. So I want to go to actually Herb. And Herb is a heterosexual Black man. and he is somebody I met because he the many things that he does. One of those things is he's a fashion designer, and at one time I was trying to be a model, and so he had an ad, and I went out and did some modeling for him, and that's how I met him, and we ended up becoming friends on Facebook. At the time, I don't believe he knew that I was not straight, but through Facebook connection, he did learn, and we have some very interesting conversations over the year for that. So that's just a bit of how I met Herb. But Herb, I'm gonna ask you: have you, or even are you, or have you ever been homophobic?
I think I would say maybe I'm still learning and kind of ignorant to the lifestyle, and I haven't been keeping up because I guess as far as my point is, I think homosexuality has been around forever. I mean, we have it's kind of cliche to say, but we all have those in the family. Like your cousin mentioned, he probably said, well, we always had little speculations about maybe certain mannerisms that you had growing up, but we definitely there's individuals in my family that we always knew that they were gay. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? They grew up, and now in today's culture, they're out of the closet, I guess. However, it's still not something that we love them anyway. They've been open arms and loved, but their lifestyle is not. I don't think the family's really comfortable with this. So, like for Thanksgiving, they could probably bring a friend, but everyone will probably say, okay, that's his boyfriend. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And talking about the gay part of it, and you and I talked and touched on it a little bit in just different conversations, but then within your own the gay community or LGBT, you guys have subcultures within that. And I'm familiar with it as you would be. So I would be someone that probably lump it all into one category. And if someone, if they don't engage me the way you and I have engaged in conversation, they could very easily, which I think is unfair, just call someone and label them and say, oh, that person is homophobic. And I think a lot of groups in our pop culture in America tend to do that. So like yesterday, I called you and I just wanted to be sure that when we came to this, which I've been looking forward to this for a while, I can wear many different hats, right? But I don't want us all coming to the table with a piece of tape on our forehead and a Sharpie labeling who we are and what our stance is. And a lot of times, I think one of the striking things, we'll get into it later, but one of the things that you said to me at one point, and you might have changed a little bit on this, but you said one time on our long Facebook conversation, because I mentioned the term, I mentioned a derogatory term, as I mentioned faggot, and you said to me that you'd rather be called a nigger before you called a faggot. And that resonated with me for a long time. And there's different things, not just because of the term itself, but in the LGBT, and this whole collective group that we have here, I think we need to concentrate on our position in society as being Black men, right? Or being Black first versus leading with those labels.
Well, let me ask you this question, okay?
Yeah.
So when you say leading with those labels, and this kind of goes back to, and I shared Quentin's video that you did maybe a few weeks ago about what you feel like the problem is in the Black community, and your response, I believe, to that was, actually one of the things that he talked about was not being able to take that label off. Like, you can't separate the two. So, and it sounds like to me what you're saying is that you feel like the Black men in the LGBT community need to be able to remove that label for the betterment of to help push the Black community further along, if you will, or kind of put the Black label ahead of the whatever other label you may have in regards to your sexuality. Right.
No, in other words, why would you're going to identify?
I got you, Q, next. I got you, Q.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you
go ahead?
I
Yes,
said
go ahead.
you're going to identify with your sexuality before you identify with your blackness.
No,
I seen some of that. I'm saying versus identifying with your sexuality before your blackness, because I use the scenario: if you and I walked into a store right now, just as we're dressed, right? They're going to see two black men. They're not going to see a gay black man and another black and a heterosexual black guy. They're going to see two black guys walk in the store. All right. And so that's how the world is going to view us first before they view us as one gay black guy and one.
Well, I think a part of that though is the fact that the people in this panel may be perceived as masculine, and so that might be a little bit masculine privilege there. But there's a lot of feminine gay men as well, and sometimes people may see that first. But go ahead, Quentin. Go ahead, Quentin.
G. So I did do a video for those of you guys who don't know me. I'm a YouTuber, media personality, Funky Dineva, and I did a video a couple weeks ago called "Straight Black Men Are the Problem with the Black Community." And to your point, and to what G is saying, there is a such thing called straight presenting privilege. But if I was a feminine, queenie acting black man, if I was a Derek J, or if I was a Lawrence from the Real Housewives of Atlanta, you may see black and feminine at the same time. Here is what the problem is for a black gay boy like myself and G. I would have no problem subordinating my gayness if I could find safety and security amongst the black community. In that video, I went on a diatribe. The most emotionally unsafe place a black boy can ever be is the barbershop. When you take a black boy to the barbershop, you see every facet of black man. You see infancy, you see toddler, you see elementary school, you see high school, you see elder, you see on their way out of here. And it's never a safe space. We're always shown these images and these attitudes of what is not accepted. That gay shit, that faggot shit. Oh, you're crying, you're expressing emotions, you a punk, you're a sissy. So it's kind of hard as a gay boy who happens to be black. I am black on the left hand and I am gay on the right. I am fighting for my life on both hands. So to ask me to subordinate one, my brother, I love you to death. I would be willing to put my gayness behind if I could come to the barbershop where you and your homeboys sit and be welcomed. But what I hear is that faggot shit, that gay shit, nigga, that's some homo shit. So I'm not even safe or comfortable there. So to ask me to subordinate one to the other, for the other is ludicrous, because on either hand, I'm not safe either way.
Did you want to respond to that, Herb?
I like to hear from some of the other brothers. I'll come back. I don't want to take it.
I actually want to go to Mr. Franksky. Mr. Franksky, a lot of people know you from being one of the on-air personalities here in Atlanta, but you do so much more. But, my connection to Frank has been, from meeting him through the radio station, and he's been somebody I've come to respect. He's kind of leaned on me when it comes to some things that he might not be able to speak of when it comes to LGBT issues and such. So, Frank, welcome to the panel. What would you say in response to what Quentin has just shared?
I think the real issue is that, unfortunately, the jury is still out for heterosexuals as to whether or not gay is a choice or it is a natural coming. So if you have people that believe it's a choice, you're going to get the prejudice, Quentin, that you feel. And it's really unfortunate. And I think that until some people come to grips, because some people have really deep feelings that it's a choice. It's a choice you made. And until people get off of that and realize that it's not a choice, it's just who we are as humans, that we're all created different. I think it's an unfortunate aspect of the culture. And when you talked about the barbershop thing, I mean, honestly, that really hit me, I mean, I've never really heard anybody say it like that, but that really, hit me because, I mean, I have teenage boys, and at any day, one of my boys can come out, and it wouldn't change my perspective, but I could imagine that it would change the perspective of a lot of people.
Yeah,
So
and I just, go ahead, I'm sorry.
To your point, with us being Black men, there are very few sacred spaces in America that belong solely to Black men. We've got barbershops, we've got cigar bars, but barbershops, and me being the product of a single mother, once I became a preteen, that's one of the places where your mama drop you off and she say, call me in an hour to come pick you up. And you learn all things manhood from the barbershop. Like I said, of all phases of manhood, from being an infant to an elder. And for me, I can remember the trauma of sitting there and just hearing Black men spit all this rhetoric about faggot this and homo this and sissy this, and being 9, 10, 11 years old, not quite even knowing what I was, but I knew if I identified with what they were talking about, it was wildly not accepted. To your point about it being a choice versus it being a force of nature, it troubles me that there are people out there who willingly choose to be ignorant about issues that they have no right to be an authority on. I always tell people at 36 years old, at this point, I refuse to engage any straight person about any conversation about LGBT issues, because to be quite honest, as far as I'm concerned, the only thing that you have to stand on is conjecture, I guess, and I think. How can anything you think about the issue trump what I know? Because, you know what I'm saying? Like, how could it? And so when it comes to the choice argument, people are, and let's not even begin Black people and Jesus and the church and what their grandma taught them and so on and so forth. But when you start to layer the nuanced issues that we face in the gay community, it's just very hard to engage the straight man. The last thing that I want to say is I'm very thankful for this panel. I almost did not want to do it because it actually goes against a lot of what I believe, because I feel like in the Black community, it is almost a prerequisite that in order for you to be a straight Black man and to be hard and to be accepted, that you have to be anti-gay. And that doesn't work for me.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to bring up the topic, because, just hitting back from the barbershop, I would imagine that, the barbershop, regardless of your sexuality, I would imagine that the barbershop can be a lot of pressure for any Black man in general, if you're not fitting into any of the boxes that, they may put you in at the barbershop. Just because you're not straight does not mean that you're ultra masculine either. And so I wanted to take that opportunity to talk about hyper-masculinity.
Can I say something real quick? I think that.
I hope I can talk today too.
Yeah. I'm coming. I was coming to you next, but let me get Frank to respond to that really quickly.
I just want to.
Cleo, I'm coming to you.
I want to respond to something that Quentin said. Even in everything that Quentin said, there are still people who make the choice to engage in behaviors that would be considered gay. And there are people who have chosen that route. So as much as you can argue that it's natural, that that's the way I am natural, we all have people we can point to that have been going back and forth for a long time because they wanted to, not because it was what they had to do. And I think that really messes it up for everybody, unfortunately. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of people, unfortunately, that have fetishes, sexual fetishes, and they go the other way because of sexual fetish, not because they're necessarily gay. So when somebody
is it safe to say at their baseline then that they're fluid? Is that fair?
I don't even know what that is, bro.
Fluid. Okay, so sexually fluid means you don't check a box. You go wherever your dick gets hard.
Hey, did you say that you almost didn't join the I got cut off for 1 second and I didn't want to miss what you said, but did you say earlier that you almost didn't come on here? Is that what you were saying?
I did. It's a personal thing of mine just to protect my own mental sanity. That at 36, I'll be 37 next month. I no longer engage straight people.
I got you. No problem. Okay. I think we all there.
Let me introduce Dr. Cleo. And Dr. Cleo, Uncle Cleo, as I affectionately call him, has been a strong mentor in my life. You know, he woke me up to a lot of different things, and somebody who I consider a mentor. Welcome, Dr. Cleo. I want you to speak on this concept, and concept or whatever you want to call it. The media runs with it a lot. Is the whole notion of hyper-masculinity, and what your thoughts are when it comes to hyper-masculinity and all that goes along with that.
Well, thank you for inviting me, and
it's good to meet you.
It's good to meet you, brothers. And you have provoked the hell out of me, but I'm going to try to follow my line of thought and start off with what G has asked me to address. First of all, hypermasculinity is not just a real estate of so-called heterosexual men. Lots of same-gender loving Black men don't want to be caught dead next to a feminine guy. Do I want to be caught dead next to a transgender, particularly a male to female transgender person? I mean, lots of same-gender loving people. And unfortunately, the LGBTQ mantra, which is a white mantra, by the way, and I'll get to that in a moment, because of all those words, all those alphabets are put out there together, people assume it's one big happy family. Well, if you saw David Chappelle's stand-up, he talked about the hierarchy and how transgender people were outside of the car that the homosexuals were in. So I want to make it clear that this fight for hyper-masculine attainment is not just among heterosexuals. It's, matter of fact, a lot of same-gender loving people praise masculinity.
Absolutely.
I would say more than half.
Yeah.
So I want to say that. And so the I'll get to the hyper-masculinity issue by saying this. I don't agree at all, and you kind of spoke to this a little bit, G, that the barbershop is a safe space for Black men, regardless of their sexuality. I think the reason why you will hear some anti-homosexual talk is because a lot of Black men, period, across the board in society, because of what happened to George Floyd and the litany of people way before George Floyd and being followed around in stores and the criminality and all kinds of things, do not feel safe and do not feel like they're honored as men in this society. So because a lot of Black men don't feel honored as men and are in question around their manhood because of oppression, sometimes they try to make up for that oppression by trying to outman each other. And often linguistically, the homosexual male is the stepchild used as a poster child to do this hyper-masculine contest. And I want to be real clear that some of the men who are in that conversation are hyper-masculine, same-gender loving men who do not want to be taken out of their manhood by being called homosexual, so they don't say anything.
Yeah.
Because manhood and masculinity, not because Black men are crazy or homophobic and all these other cliches alone, Black men are under attack in this society. And if you watch television, if you watch the news, if you read FBI surveillance, if you just look, Black men are under heavy attack. And one of the unstated mantras that's happening among Black folks is that, look, we've been emasculated, we've been castrated, and here he gonna come being a punk. Here he gonna come and be the poster child of what we live in fear of, which is emasculation. And there hasn't been many Black conversations, rational, engaging Black conversations across the spectrum of Black people to take this out of the abstract and go on and let's have some real conversation about this. I appreciate this forum, but I'm going to say that I've been doing forums like this for 30 years. My life and my work does not. I'm a same-gender loving man. Let me make that sure. I'm a same-gender loving brother.
And I also want you to go ahead and I want you to also speak on same-gender loving because some people not know what that is.
Okay.
So I want you to speak on that too. You know.
Okay, well, what I'm getting ready to say is almost like a segue to that in terms of me being a very strategic person. My life does not occur inside of LGBTQ, queer, and all that stuff that, in my perspective, is a white paradigm. It's a white racist paradigm that calls black men BBCs and thugs and sexual objects for white devouring. And it's not a safe space for black people, no matter how feminine or masculine they are, the LGBT community. The reason that same gender loving came into existence was to create a way of referencing ourselves that was informed by, respectful, and considerate of the black experience. That identified same-gender loving, bisexual women and men, and people across the spectrum in ways that are not disrespectful at its foundation, which gay is, but that affirms and highlights the existence of black people as part of the black family from a cultural and real life perspective. I am constantly making sure that my life is not co-signing white supremacy. That's another reason why I don't do lesbian and gay. But I am a same-gender loving person. So I got to refer myself some way to create conversation about the fact that we exist and to make sure that we're talking about who we are from a black community considerate perspective. But I'll close all that to reiterate that there's a lot of assumptions about so-called heterosexual men, so-called same-gender loving men, and safety. I'm telling you right now, from working in prison, from working as a police officer, from working in social services, from working in human services, black men, period, don't feel safe. And I'm going to reiterate that and I already said this earlier, but it's so important, I have to say it one more time, some of this hyper-masculine feminine phobia or femophobia, a term I coined in an undergraduate paper a long time ago. The femophobia is an unconscious reaction to emasculation and castration in the society that black men live in fear of.
So
with good reason.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you said that, because one of my questions I wanted to ask, because again, a lot of the men on this panel can be perceived as masculine presenting men. We don't have any over feminine men on the panel, and I want to go to some of my heterosexual brothers. While I'm very comfortable with you guys have been shown to be very comfortable around me as a same gender loving man. I would wonder if the situation was different, if I was what you perceive as an ultra feminine same gender loving man. Would the level of comfort with the relationship be the same? And you could be honest if it makes you uncomfortable or not, because I would just say when I was not loving who I was, kind of anti-feminine as well. I didn't want, just like as Dr. Cleo said, I didn't want to be associated with ultra feminine men, because that was kind of me running away from myself. But I'm gonna go to Nikki, Earl, and let you answer that question.
So in terms of our dynamic in our relationship, if you were more feminine with what you were, I think that it would draw a little bit of uncomfortability with me, because I think the initial reaction, if I was out in public with you, would be like, dang, I hope people don't think I'm gay. But
why don't you want people to think that you're gay?
That's a good question. I think that in our society, when we talk about masculinity, there's a certain comfortability that comes with masculinity. Nobody likes to be looked at as an other or different than, if they don't have to. So I think that's where my uncomfortability would come from. And ultimately, the fact that is that I don't want to be perceived wrongly, because I'm not gay. So ultimately, I want to be seen as who I am and not who somebody may think I am because of who I'm with. So, yeah.
I got you.
Can I add something to that? And let's get to the root of why you don't want to be perceived something if you're not. If you are hanging out with a rich person and somebody perceived you being rich, you wouldn't have a problem with that. You know what I'm saying? So let's really dig as to why you'd have an issue with being perceived gay. It's because society tells us that it's wrong. You're an outcast. It's not a perception thing. Because like I said, you'd eat it up all day long if somebody perceives you to be rich. You take that all day long.
I think that's an excellent point, and I don't disagree with you with that. I think that being rich, you're right. There is a more of a positive image on it. It's more accepting, especially being a black man. Understanding masculinity the way I do and how it's looked at within our community. It's definitely not looked at as a good thing. I don't know anybody in my community that said is proud to be gay unless or it speaks highly of gay people. They may tolerate it, but the reality is, people like my cousin, people may look at him as, they may tolerate him and accept him, but they won't promote him. They won't say, oh, I'm glad that he's my friend. Outside of our close circle of friends, I know where we're from. I personally don't think that there are a lot of heterosexual males that would invite him into their company knowing his sexual desires or sexual orientation, I should say. So I don't disagree with you on that point. I think it's an excellent point.
I'm going to tell you what hurts, if you'll allow me, G.
Yes,
what hurts as a gay man, right, is that we fight for y'all, but y'all don't fight for us. And at the end, hold on, let me finish. Let me just make this last point.
And then we want to make sure that we're talking as a collective, because we know that
when we talk about Black Lives Matter and all of these men getting choked out by police and shot up by police, these are heterosexual Black men that the expectation is that the entire community rally behind them because Black Lives Matter. But let it be one of us, one of these sissies, one of these faggots, one of these punks, and then everybody goes silent. So it kind of hurts, because when I look at y'all as my brothers, yeah, when I show up in the world looks at me just like one of y'all, and I feel like one of y'all, but we don't get the same respect from one of y'all when we face the same exact issues that y'all do, and then some. At least y'all got the comfort of being able to come back to the Black community and be comforted by your homeboy, the Black woman, the Black church, or whatever the case may be. We go out, we face all the same issues y'all face as a Black man, and we have no sanctuary within the Black community.
And I'm gonna get Herb. I see your hand going up. Let me get you to respond to that.
So from a collective standpoint, the reality is, like, we don't control the media, right? I personally, and Greg knows, I'm an advocate for the gay community. I defend you guys all the time. When I'm around, especially when I'm playing basketball with some guys I play basketball with, I hear the comments they make. I challenge them on their thought processes. But the reality is that anytime there's a trans death, that's a Black man or a woman or trans woman, whatever, we don't know about it. Like, I have no idea when these particular deaths occur, because I don't see it highlighted in the media. Maybe if we had more, I know I watch Roland Martin all the time. I've seen Dr. Cleo on there. Maybe if we had more of an outlet to push that narrative, maybe there would be more of a understanding and more sympathy towards that right. But I honestly, when there's a trans death, I don't know about it. I'm not aware of it.
So I think that, well, how about, can we recognize that a part of that support or lack of support thereof behind that could be some homophobia or some disdain for the community in general? So I'm gonna get you, Herb, let me go ahead and get you to respond to that, please.
Well, what I think is like the subcultures within the culture, and I listened to Dr. Cleo just to kind of do some history on what he was talking about, because you said you thought that some of the things that I had was said to you were in line with what he was saying. And it took about the second video for me to get confirmation on, see, the part where he says I'm same gender loving, right? Same gender loving. So I would put him in a category as with maybe LGBT or gay, but he's going in depth with the same gender loving. But I was more in tune of what he was saying specifically. I looked at him on Roland Martin, and then I looked at him when he was in his home, and he was going in a little bit about the LGBT and how they would segue the Black Lives Matter movement and use it as a Trojan horse to push other agendas. And I'm very much pro-Black, and I'm not anti. And I called you yesterday, G, and I said, I don't want to be the guy coming up there and there's someone on there trying to defend. You don't have to, Mr. Quentin, you don't have to defend your sexuality. We're past that. I've been talking to G about this for, G, you came and modeled for me, it was 2010. That was 2000, that was 10 years ago. You know what I'm saying? And I believe that even your stance I've seen in conversations that we had has changed a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Because here we are at this point.
Hopefully over 10 years, hopefully things have changed.
No, I'm saying, but you have said things a little bit different over this long conversation that we've had. I'm past that because in my predicament, it's not to throw your life experiences, Quentin, away, but I value the barbershop conversations. If I have young men around me, because I mentor young men, Frank Ski, I played in I had young men that are in the NFL now. We played in the Frank Ski Bowl against New Birth years back. You know what I mean? I've been around in Atlanta for a long time. I worked in CNN for many years. Right now, Mr. Don Lemon, right, is he's on prime time media. He's the one of the only brothers that we have every night. He's on prime time, right? Even Mr. Don Lemon, some of his views have, I'm not gonna say they have changed, but he speaks more open for the Black cause and less about his sexuality. You know what I'm saying? But then if he were to bring that sexuality to the forefront, he doesn't speak for all the Black men. He don't speak for us because Don Lemon doesn't go home to a wife and children. He not saying that his words are less, but the thing is there's a large population of unapologetic alpha males, Black American men that go home, they raise families, we mentor in the community, we're professionals. I'm talking to you guys, I'm overseas, I'm in Europe right now. I travel the globe, right? I look like how I look, but I'm outnumbered in my field of profession that I do. You know what I'm saying? But I'm unapologetically Black first. And so if I'm on the front lines out there and I'm fighting, right? And you're part of LGBT, yo, I'm gonna say, hey, bro, I need you to take off your heels and your skirt if you're feminine or whatever, and I need you to get on the front line with me. It ain't about that because you guys have always been a part of our community. I talked to G so long, so then you could check me and say, hey, yo, man, it's not cool. When you told me, hey, I'd rather be called a nigga before I call faggot, right? Okay, I'm disagreeing with you, but I hear what you're saying. That's the level that you put it on. Because now I'm saying, all right, but I think nigger is worse than faggot. You know what I'm saying? But that's your personal experience. You know what I mean? So if you brothers, I want us to be included. I don't want this to turn into, brothers is coming down on me because I'm feminine or I'm gay or whatever. There's been homosexuals in the Black community from forever.
Can I point out one thing? And it'll just be a 5-second thing. What stands out to me was the fact that you used the word, I'm an alpha male that goes home with my woman, which implies that if you're gay, you're not. And
no, Dr. Cleo Manago comes off as that. He comes off as that, but his sexual preference may be different. And I'm saying, so there we could bridge the gap right there. So we have some likes there because it took me like the second or third video to get confirmation, but I was caught more into the message that he was delivering for the collective of the group, not him leading with, even though he was leading with single,
transgender.
Transgender loving. Okay, he was leading, that's his thing, right? But the thing is, he had all these other issues that are pro who we are as a group. I just want
to make sure that we send the message and we get an understanding that just because I'm gay doesn't make me more or less than any other man out there. And I think that's the fundamental issues in our community, that people think because you're gay, you're not a man. And what they don't understand, and G can attest to this, more times than not, and I don't want to shift the conversation this way, but I want to say this, more times than not, the gay man is left to be more of a man than y'all can ever be. Because
listen, Quentin, that's what I don't do.
Shit that y'all tear up and break down with these damn women, we have to pick them up, be their best damn friend, take care of their kids, loan them money, give them rides, help them. You know what I'm saying? So it gets weird when we get noted as not being men because we're gay. And now I give my time to a like-minded speaker.
I think that there should be an acceptable and unacceptable behavior, right? And for one, in our society and then in our community. And I believe Black people, on one hand, we hold ourselves to a higher standard, but then on the other hand, we celebrate a lot of bullshit in our community. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not with none of it. And so I'm unapologetic about that.
So let me get Dr. Cleo. I know you've been trying to chime in. Herb, let me get Dr. Cleo to go ahead and add some commentary. I know you've been nodding your head and.
This is difficult for me because I'm not good at having to wait to speak, and then something else comes up, and then so I'm going to attempt to make sense. And pardon me if I don't, and please alert me if I don't. But as I said in my previous comments, we have to have some conversations. There are just too many assumptions going on. One assumption that's been made in this conversation is that all the men who have been highly profiled that were murdered were heterosexual. I don't make that assumption. I don't know what your sexuality is until you articulate it to me. It's a homo chauvinist perspective to assume that a defensive homo chauvinist perspective to assume that somebody's heterosexual because they're quote unquote masculine or whatever. And so there's all these conversations, and one of the most ironic topics to me is Black male safety, because one of the reasons why we even having this conversation is because of how unsafe Black men feel across the board. And another thing that's going on here too is that, ironically, and this is inspired by some of what you said, Herb, a lot of same-gender loving people go into the clutches of the white racist gay community for sanctuary because they don't have any demonstrative acknowledged safety in the Black community, an invitation to show up as they are or as we are. And so ironically, you'll have a defensive, wounded homosexual person talking gay, and not talking about Black because they feel hurt by you. And that hurt needs to be acknowledged because it's real. Now, I don't carry that hurt. I don't live with it. I don't have no issue with it. I don't feel threatened by anything. But I understand that people feel wounded, feel unseen, and feel hurt, and need to feel good about their lives. So some Black people go into a racist bastion called LGBT for some kind of sanctuary around their sexuality because they don't get enough of it at home, and it creates a split. And the irony here is that then somebody will say, well, they're saying they're quote unquote gay first, they're not being Black first. Well, look at the schizophrenia that's being created because of a lack of a safe place in the Black space. So we have to be very thoughtful about creating safe space for our diversity so we can all stay home or prefer each other's company over racist white folks' company.
Come on, Cleo.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you.
Also, again, it's important to understand that when I hate going to the barbershop, but for me, I hate going to the barbershop because I don't like hearing about white Jesus all day, and I don't like the N-word. And I think it's a strange dichotomy. I haven't heard it that much. Somebody's saying I'd rather be called the N-word than be called a faggot, because there's no contest to me. You don't call me neither one of them. Mm-hmm. They're both equally offensive. But when I get down to the microscopics of it, the N-word is even more offensive because the N-word.
I don't remember saying that by the way. That was 10 years ago. So
the N-word is said. The N-word is said toward homosexual Black people in the homosexual community, white gay community, which is one of the reasons why the N-word is particularly offensive to me, because it's it don't have no sexuality. And I know that Quentin knows what I'm talking about, whether he talks about it himself or not, that community is often dismissing the lives and the quality of life and the humanity of Black people. That's why when I heard this crap about people trying to mix the Black power fist with the rainbow flag, I said, who came up with this Frankenstein, this bullshit Frankenstein monster?
Yeah.
There hasn't been. This is one of the most. When Ed Buck was murdering Black men left and right in L.A., the white gay community didn't say nothing. Some of y'all too young to know about Jeffrey Dahmer, when he was eating Black men. White gay community didn't say nothing.
Cleo, can I ask a question?
And let me just close with this, and I want to hear your question, but I want to understand that the white gay community has not been our friend. And Black people, I'm talking about the same gender loving Black people now, need to take a look at jumping into that paradigm for sanctuary when it's a racist sanctuary. And it's better to go in there, in my opinion, and engage Black folks and even have principled struggles with Black folks and make yourself a norm as a part of the Black perspective from a respectful and cultural perspective than going to this gay thing for sanctuary and then coming back to attack Black people.
Hold on for a second, because I think that's like probably a whole nother, we could talk about that. But I think that's a whole nother subject, and I kind of want to stay on topic here, especially if we only got 10 minutes. And I want to hear from Mr. Frank again. And
I want to hear your question too. I want to hear Quentin's question.
Well, my question, and I think Frank can answer.
I mean, when you say so, G, not when I say so. When you say so.
And I think my question will be good for Frank, and it's just a flat out question to the straight men on the panel. Why does our existence in your space challenge you so much?
Well, I got to be honest. It doesn't challenge me. So that's a hard one to understand. But let me just say this. It's very interesting because I remember, when I started in radio in Baltimore, when I first got to the morning show and became real big, my co-host was used to always dress in drag, Miss Tony, and was a huge music star and the whole 9 yards. And being Black and gay in what I did when I started being in the club game was a norm. So I've never had an issue with it at all. And to the fact that when I came to Atlanta for the first time and I played one of my mixes on the air and played some house music, the first thing people said, like, why you playing that gay shit, right? But the interesting thing is, so I've never had an issue with somebody's sexuality. I really don't care. It don't bother me either way, right? So I don't care. But I think sometimes gay people make it a bigger deal than I make it. You know what I'm saying? And they make it.
Would you be offended if somebody assumed that you were gay?
They always assume I'm gay. I've been assuming I'm gay for 25 damn years. I've been gay. I've had multiple husbands. I've had several wives. I have about a dozen kids. That shit don't bother me, bro. And every time, and the funny thing is, every time I try to speak on this, I get cremated by the gay community, including you, Quentin, including you, who have done me out.
Frank, I ain't never laid you out, Frank. Frank, I ain't never laid you out.
But the thing is, what I'm trying to say is, I try to stand up, and the more I try to stand up, the more I get beat down. So I have to get on the phone and call G, because if I try to say something, because listen, here's the issue. Within the gay community, there are so many different factions within the gay community that don't agree with each other. So if I come out and try to speak on behalf of gay people the best I can, there's somebody in the gay community saying, look at that, look at him, he gay. Like, they get on my case so bad. And I think the problem is that I don't think there's a real, as much as I want to say it, G, I don't think there's a real answer. And like white people can't fix us until we fix us, right? So Black people got to fix ourselves. You know what I'm saying? We got to, before we try to get the world to help us fix us, we got to help us fix ourselves, right? So before the world tries to help the gay community got to fix itself too. So here's the issue. Here's the real deal. Why does Atlanta, which is a big gay hub, right? Why does Atlanta have 2 gay pride weekends, a white one and a black one?
Because of racism.
The same reason why you have Black shit in the street and the overall Black community and Black shit.
That's my point. That's my point. So there is no separation between being Black and gay. You are Black. There is no separation.
No, Frank. So you're wrong.
You can't. You are Black. Frank, you're Black.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And I acknowledge.
I think that you have a lot.
I don't have any separation.
Hey, Quentin, you do yourself a disservice
when you go to the cookout, Frank. They hand you a plate, a hot dog bun, and some condiments. When me and G walk to the cookout holding hands, we're not invited. That is the problem.
Well, you're going to the wrong cookout, bro.
No, Nick, but
if you came to my house, I wouldn't care.
Yeah, but Frank,
like I said before, there's just too many assumptions going on here about what people's experiences are.
Cleo, can we not generalize the fact that Black people, Christianity, overall homosexuality is not accepted amongst the Black Christian community? Is that a generalization, a fair one that we can make?
It's not.
A fair one I'll make is that
it's not, because it doesn't listen. There is an older Black church, and then there's a current Black church.
Frank, I feel safer with white men than I ever will with a group of y'all.
Dude, I go to the current ministries all around Atlanta, and there is just as many gay as Black, and nobody cares. If you go to the old school churches,
come on, Cleo, I'm ready for you.
Go ahead, Dr. Cleo. Go ahead, Dr. Cleo. I know you want to comment on what Cleo said.
But that's been my experience. I have never felt safe amongst a group of heterosexual Black men. I've always been men who you assume are heterosexual. Because let me tell you something. Presenting.
Well, whatever that is, I mean, they're male presenting, and man has a spectrum. You know, some people ain't doing this heterosexual presenting drama that white folks have taught us to do. We just what we are. But
come on, let's talk about it.
We got 4 minutes, and Quentin is just saying that he feels more comfortable with white folks than he does with Black folks. That's a whole show. That's a whole show because that mentality is ironic. Because when I'll be brief as I can, which is difficult. I do surveys with same-gender loving people and Black people across the country all the time. And I'm always talking, this is inspired by the irony of your commentary, Quentin. I talk to young same-gender loving people all the time and ask them how they feel about the community, the same-gender loving community, the so-called gay community, the so-called Black gay or LGBTQ alphabet soup community. And most of them don't like it. Most of them don't have a positive critique about their own community. Yet you feel safer with white folks than you do with Black folks.
Every man I ever been beat up by has been Black.
Wait. Hold on, Quentin.
Every person
let me say this. I gotta say this because I counsel people. I do therapy with people, and some of them are white. Everybody white who I've ever run into who's been beat up can say the same thing about white folks.
Okay.
People get listen to me closely. People get beat up mostly by who they're in close proximity with, in terms of who's in their life. When people get murdered, sometimes it's often somebody in close proximity to them, and that's their same color. So if you interview some white folks, and I have, who have been the victims of violence, in most cases those violators are white.
Okay.
When I talk to Latinos and Asians who have been violated in their lives,
that serves the whole false Black on Black crime narrative.
Exactly, because when it comes to real numbers and hard numbers in this country, you can read FBI surveillance reports and see this. Most of the violence in this country, in terms of hard numbers, is white on white crime.
Yeah,
get the ID channel. Watch 48 Hours to review the FBI surveillance reports. So that issue, you might want to have a show on this. Because that mentality that Quentin has creates a lot of problems, a lot of division, a lot of confusion, and has been very destructive to this community. I'm not talking about just Black people generally. I'm talking about same-gender loving people and the Black community, because we racialize ourselves because of racism by thinking what Black people do is just so bad, when half the stuff we blame the Black people for, white people do it too.
Right. It's just odd because my experience, Cleo, has been I found more safety and security outside of my race than I have. Every man that looks like me growing up has told me I'm a faggot, I'm a sissy, and I am less than.
And I think what that is, I think you're just more triggered by what you grew up around, which is the Black man. So that's the trigger. So
he's racializing.
White folks too, most of the time, about white people think about us. We really don't.
I'm fair enough to accept that. That may be the case.
White people who are privileged in this country don't racialize themselves. They don't get mad at a white person and say, this is what white people do.
Right.
We racialize ourselves because we've been trained to do that by racists who run this country when it comes to every social system we have. We don't want to say sit your black ass down. White people don't say sit your white ass down. Yeah. They don't get mad and say you white mother blank. They don't do that because but believe it or not, even though these are black people facilitating this behavior, white people taught you this. It was them who first said, sit your black ass down.
Hey, Dr.
It
was my first who first said
I'm
that.
open to that. I am open to that being the foundation of my belief system. I completely am. I don't have my head so far up my ass that I can't relearn something, but it has been what I felt up until this point. Like I don't like to go to house parties where there's a bunch of straight black men, because my experience has been I'm not going to be accepted. They're going to pick at me. They're going to call me faggots. They're going to make me feel uncomfortable. That's been my life's experience.
Well, to wrap this up, Dr. Cleo, you've said a whole lot of great things, but to wrap this up, because I don't want to keep everybody beyond what you guys have promised, but to wrap this up, like I said,
YouTube channel, me and you can sit on another day, and I
think that would be good.
Talk about this.
Yeah, I think that would be good.
I'm the only little black boy from Miami.
No, you're not. Unfortunately, no, you're not. And a lot of people who think like you get a lot of power because you accommodate whiteness because you're mad at black folks.
Yeah. I think that's an important conversation.
Be nice, nasty, and I'm gonna. You just read nice, nasty, Dr. Cleo.
We could be on your show. Let's do it.
But I'm not gonna give you one more of those. So watch yourself.
I'm not concerned. I am not concerned.
So I want to wrap this up. The whole point of this conversation is so we can do this, and I think that just by people hearing this conversation, there's going to be a lot of clarity and understanding, and that can happen for a lot of people. So I appreciate you guys for joining this conversation. And I'm just going to go around the room, and I want you guys to just kind of close out and let me know, and let the viewers know, what do you think needs to happen amongst the black men in our community, non-straight and straight, to help bridge some of those gaps? And I'm going to start with Mr. Herb.
All right, I'm going to take something that I heard Mr. Cleo say earlier on one of the YouTubes. There needs to be some cultural cohesion. Mr. Quentin Latham, you're going to prohibit progress with yourself, and I think with collectively with the effort that we want to make. If you come in with all of the emotion and hurt that you have, you know what I'm saying? Because I know for me, I can care less what I need, in Atlanta, G has beat me to the punch with this discussion here, but we've been talking about this for a while, right? But you guys, I think the opposite. Gay men actually have a platform, and they have resources from, maybe even more so in certain areas than heterosexual men do. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm like, yo, forget all of that other nonsense. We need to pool our resources because we're behind the power curve. You know what I mean? We have to pool our resources because there's gay people and there's LGBT, same gender loving. Everyone wants to have a title and a name and all that. Okay, we got that. I don't have to understand every dynamic of it. But I do understand your struggles from when it comes from a black perspective, and we need to pool those resources. We could deal with those other things if we talk. Then you could school me on what this is and what that is. You know what I mean? And then I'm gonna respect you as a person. You know what I mean? And you're gonna respect me. You're not gonna you can't turn me gay or whatever it is, and I'm not gonna turn you Christian. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And we're going to move forward. That's all I'm saying. And this should be this part of your book, G, is part of your life or whatever. But this is a discussion that has many within it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so as a group, I think all of us, all black men and black people, black men we have a case, I think, against society of PTSD. We all have a case, a legitimate case of PTSD. Just listen to the conversation. I mean, everyone didn't get as emotional, but we all had to hold back in different parts of the conversation because we all deal with some of the same things. You know what I'm saying? So
thank you. Thank you, brother. I appreciate you. And I'm gonna go ahead and let Quentin.
So
what do you think?
Dr. Cleo, I definitely want to acknowledge the fact that at 36 years old, I am a hurt little gay black boy. I am.
I know.
Who's been hurt at the hands of black men, who has never felt the love and the warmth of the black man, who has always felt at opposition with the black man, and who has always been put in a position with the black woman to clean up the mess of the heterosexual black man. So I acknowledge the fact, as I look through some of the comments, that I do come off like a hurt little gay boy, because I am. And I definitely would love to have a conversation with you, on my channel, on G's channel at another time, for us to dissect this. Like I said earlier, my head is not so far up my ass that I can't recognize that there's some issue going on within, but everything that I've discussed in this discourse is true. I have been hurt at the hand of the hyper-masculine black man, and therefore I don't see it for him,
Yeah.
And I would love to feel the warmth and the embrace of the straight black man. Outside of that, y'all on here know who I am. I am Quentin Latham, aka friends call me Q. All things social media, Funky Dineva, Miss Funky Dineva Ross. If you know me, you know me. If you don't, you know me now. Me and Dr. Cleo will have another discussion. I'm gonna get his number from G, and we're gonna set up another discussion where he can help me through some of these things, because I definitely think I represent a lot of hurt
Yes.
out there.
You do. You definitely do. And I talk a lot about that hurt in my book. Earl Kornickey, go ahead and close us out on what you think that can probably help close some of the gaps between the differences in the black men.
I have a lot to say, but I'll wrap it like this. The black community is not a monolith. We don't all think alike. We don't all feel the same way. I found it a little disappointing, Quentin, that you don't want to broach any more conversations with heterosexual black men like myself. Because ultimately, I'm an advocate for you, and I'm out here, supporting you. And just like how we tell our so-called white allies that they need to go to other white people and advocate for the black community, that's how I feel about advocating for people like my cousin, because I love him, and I don't want to see him victimized because of his sexuality or sexual preference. So in order for me to get the type of feedback, I need to get the feedback from people like you to understand and be able to articulate to heterosexual men how you feel, what you feel, and try to kind of, for lack of a better term, bring them on board. So I hope that you will revisit the whole idea of not having conversations or not wanting to have a conversation, because ultimately I'm a Pan-Africanist, black nationalist. We're brothers, and we have to bridge that gap, and it won't be bridged if we won't communicate.
Duly noted.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Dr. Cleo, keep it short and brief.
I understand to the extent that I can, Quentin, your pain. I'm familiar with your pain. I'm not dismissive of your pain. It's difficult to have a conversation with the kind of nuance I would like because of the time frame and because there's multiple issues happening here. But I will reiterate that we need to have conversations between each other, because there's lots of assumptions that have become acculturated, and they've been going on for so long, we think they're really true. Like, for example, all the black men who were killed were heterosexual. We don't know that. We are having a lot of assumptions because of pain. And I look forward to having the conversation with you. But I also want to let us all remember that we are trained to racialize ourselves. We are intentionally trained to be in conflict. We are intentionally conditioned not to resolve issues and to be in emotional and self-conceptual chaos. Herb already mentioned something that I talk about a lot, which is cultural cohesion. When Trump ran for president, white gays, including white feminists, heterosexuals, homosexuals, all kinds of people voted for white power. Half the people that voted for him were white women. And regardless of pussy grabbing, because they were concerned about white power because they valued whiteness. I don't think we should ever emulate the evil of whiteness, but we should emulate valuing Black people. And regardless of our differences, because it's ironic, and I'm closing with this, it's very ironic given how racist and white supremacist this country is for a Black person to be so hurt that they'd rather go into the arms of white folks than Black people. That's deep. That's deep. And I understand it because I know that, for example, and I'm going to really close, G, as I said earlier, we are trained to racialize ourselves, to other ourselves, and to second guess our worth and put ourselves in the category of not human, but Black. Sit your Black ass down. I'll beat the Black off of you. Nobody talks like that but us because white people trained us to do that. So that's why, because we're trained to be anti-Black and to other the Black experience, that we can get mad at Black people for stepping on our foot and run to white folks who just hung somebody.
Yeah.
We got to take a look at that behavior, but we got to work on cultural cohesion. I look forward to the next conversation, G, so I can break some more of the stuff down because I'm about to lose my mind trying to sell this stuff in this brief space. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you, Uncle Cleo. And lastly, Mr. Frank Ski, go ahead and close out and just give us your final thoughts and what you think can help advance us as Black men in the community.
Yeah, I think more panels like this, more conversations like this will definitely help. I think we're at a pivotal point within the Black community where this is the best time we've ever had in America to really come together as one. We've seen that Black Lives Matter movement to all the movements across America takes everybody within the Black community to make this train go. And it takes everybody. I've learned a very long time ago that some of the most creative, intellectual minds I have ever met have been from my gay friends. And I will never take that away. And I think if we come together as a community better and protect each other so we don't have people feeling like Quentin does, we'd be a lot better off. Because here's the thing, we cannot move forward and leave anybody behind. And the fact that some people within our community feel left out, and it's not just the gay community, it's the quirky community, it's the intellectual community, it's the gaming community, it's the artistic community, it's the geeky community, the computer,
the trans community.
It's so many people feeling left out of the Black experience where they have to feel like, okay, if I'm a geek, I got to hang around with my white friends to be accepted and go to the Star Wars convention because my Black friends think I'm not cool anymore.
Right.
So much healing to do within ourselves that if we do that, if we're able to pull, like Cleo said and Herb said, everybody together, right, Carl? We can pull everybody together. We will be so strong that we will see change that is never seen in America before. So, G, thank you, man. Thank you for always being my friend and always taking my call, even at 6 a.m. in the morning, bro.
You do call at 6 a.m. and it might be sleep. But, man, this has been an extremely, extremely powerful conversation. And just to wrap it up, I think that what we have to do is to reach out to people to bring them to a level of the same understanding that I think that we kind of collectively came to here. Just like Quentin, you reach out to all your hurt Black boys and help them to open up to have conversations with straight Black men. And it's the same thing with straight Black men, is to reach in when you're at the barbershop and you hear the ignorance of faggot this and weak this and weak that, then it's our duty to speak up for each other. And I think that's kind of like probably the collective answer here, is to really reach out to those people who are not on the same, because we have a group of very smart and woke brothers here on this panel, but we have a responsibility to bring each other up. So, with that, I just want to close out and say that I was very strategic in picking this panel. Everybody on this panel has had a strong impression on me. I love all of you with all of my heart, and I consider you all brothers in my life. And thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Good night. You'll check me out next week, where I will be speaking about fatherhood, and I'll be having a one-on-one interview with my son. So tune in next week. Thank you, guys.
Black power. Black power.
Black power. That's right.